I exposed my stepfather at Thanksgiving, and I'd do it 1,000 times over. My mother dropped her wine glass, and it shattered across the hardwood floor. 14 family members sat frozen around the dining table while I held my phone screen toward Gerald's face. His expression shifted from confusion to recognition to pure terror in less than 3 seconds. "Where did you get that?" he whispered. I told him I got it from someone who wanted him gone as badly as I did. My grandmother started crying before she even understood what was happening. She could feel it in the room. Something was ending. Gerald married my mother 6 years ago when I was 19. He wore expensive suits, drove a German car, and talked constantly about his portfolio management career. My mom had been a widow for 3 years and lonely in ways I couldn't fix. Gerald swooped in with flowers and fancy dinners and promises of stability. The wedding happened fast, too fast. Within 8 months, he'd convinced her to add his name to her bank accounts. Within a year, he was managing all her finances. My father had left her everything when he died: the house, the retirement fund, the life insurance. Gerald positioned himself as the protector of all of it. I watched from college and felt something wrong in my gut that I couldn't name yet. The first real warning came at Christmas 2 years in. Gerald pulled me aside and told me my mother didn't need me visiting so often, said I stressed her out, said she'd told him she wished I'd give her more space. I confronted my mom about it later, and she looked genuinely confused. She'd never said anything like that, but Gerald had already planted the seed. My visits got shorter, my calls got less frequent. He was isolating her, and I was too young and stupid to see the full picture. The following summer, I noticed my mom had stopped mentioning her friends. Book club was gone. Her walking group dissolved. Gerald explained she was happier staying home with him. She smiled when he said it, but her eyes looked hollow. But it got worse. Last spring, my mom called me crying at midnight. She wanted to buy my grandmother a birthday gift, and Gerald had frozen her credit cards. He told her she needed to submit receipts for everything and get approval before spending. This was a woman who'd managed her own household for 25 years. I drove home that weekend, and Gerald met me at the door with his arms crossed. "Your mother and I are working through some budgeting strategies," he said calmly. "It's none of your concern." I asked my mom if she was okay, and she nodded without looking at me. Gerald's hand was on her shoulder the entire time. That night, I started digging. I found the second family 3 weeks later. Gerald had a wife named Diane in another state, 2 kids, a house with a mortgage in both their names. He'd been married to her for 12 years and never filed for divorce. My mother's marriage wasn't legal. I hired a private investigator with my savings, and he delivered a folder thick enough to choke on. Bank transfers, property records, photos of Gerald at soccer games with children my mother didn't know existed. He'd been siphoning money from my mom's accounts and funneling it to his real life. Over $400,000 in 4 years. I showed everything to an attorney who confirmed my mom had grounds for criminal charges. Then I made copies. Then I waited for the right moment. Thanksgiving morning, Gerald stood at the head of the table and raised his glass for a toast. He thanked everyone for being there. Thanked my mother for being such a wonderful partner. Said family was the most important thing in his life. I felt my phone burning in my pocket. My aunt asked me why I wasn't eating, and I told her I'd lost my appetite. Gerald kept talking about gratitude and blessings, while my mother smiled at him like he was her savior. I couldn't take another second. I stood up and asked if anyone wanted to see what family really meant to Gerald. Then I pulled up the photo of him with Diane and their kids at a baseball game. Time stamped 3 weeks ago. His other son was wearing a birthday crown. The room erupted. My aunt started screaming. My uncle grabbed Gerald by the collar and shoved him against the wall. My mother just stared at the photo with her hand over her mouth, shaking so hard her chair rattled against the floor. Gerald tried to explain, said it was complicated, said Diane meant nothing. I pulled up the bank records showing the transfers and read the amounts out loud. My grandmother had to leave the room. Gerald looked at me with hatred so pure it made my skin crawl. "You've destroyed this family," he spat. I told him he destroyed it the day he walked through our door. My cousin called the police while Gerald tried to grab his car keys. My uncle blocked the door. Gerald was arrested for bigamy and financial fraud. My mother's attorneys recovered most of the money. Diane filed for divorce 3 days later after I sent her copies of everything.